Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of everything you've ever known, your job, your relationships, your identity. Behind you is comfort, predictability, a soft bed of familiar pain. In front of you, only darkness. You've lost something, perhaps a dream, a person, or even your sense of self. And in this silence, something inside you whispers the terrifying thought: what if this suffering is not a detour, but the way? Your heart beats faster. The idea is offensive. Our entire lives we've been taught that pain is a problem to solve, a sickness to cure, an enemy to destroy. The moment we feel it, emotional pain, existential dread, the ache of failure or loss, we reach for anesthetics, distractions, validation, anything to drown it out. But what if pain is not your enemy? What if it's a teacher, harsh, ruthless, and utterly necessary? Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Chaos, not comfort. He believed that greatness was forged not in happiness, but in struggle. That the sharpest minds, the most awakened souls, were those who had walked through the fire and stayed awake while burning. But here's the paradox. In a world that worships comfort, Nietzsche's message sounds cruel, even dangerous. We are told to chase peace, positivity, healing. We are sold self-help slogans that promise quick fixes. But deep inside, you know that something's missing. Why do people who avoid suffering end up emotionally fragile? Why do those who've been through hell often radiate a strange, unsettling strength? Why does comfort, despite its sweetness, leave us hollow? Modern psychology offers 1,000 names: trauma responses, anxiety disorders, cognitive dissonance. But Nietzsche wasn't interested in bandages. He wanted to rip open the wound and stare directly into it. He wanted us to become the kind of person who can look pain in the face and say, "You are mine. I will use you." And yet, how many of us actually believe that? How many would willingly choose suffering over serenity? Who among us dares to turn inward and meet the shadow? There's a reason most people never become who they were meant to be. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they avoid pain. They choose familiarity over growth, numbness over truth. They stay in the shallows, safe but stagnant. But here's the deeper question Nietzsche forces us to confront. What if your pain is the only honest part of your life? What if it's trying to wake you up, not break you down? What if the very thing you keep avoiding holds the key to your transformation? This is not motivational fluff. It's existential dynamite. It's the quiet war happening within you, between the part that longs to be free and the part that fears the cost of freedom. And Nietzsche? He didn't just theorize this, he lived it. He spent most of his life in solitude, battling illness, enduring rejection, going slowly mad under the weight of his own mind. Yet through it all, he forged a philosophy of power, will, and transcendence, not in spite of pain, but because of it. He rejected the moral frameworks of his time, calling them illusions designed to keep people small. He claimed religion glorified weakness, and that pity was a weapon of control. He saw modern man as spiritually starved, clinging to artificial meaning because the alternative, facing life as it is, was too unbearable. But what if he was right? What if the very institutions we trust to bring us peace have instead stripped us of the strength to face life directly? What if the quest for happiness has become a prison? Imagine, just for a moment, that your pain isn't meaningless, that your depression, your loneliness, your deepest fears are not flaws to erase, but flares, signals that your soul is calling you to evolve, not into something safe, but into something real. And if that's true, then everything changes. Because if pain is power in disguise, then healing is not a return to comfort, but a descent into the underworld, a rebirth through fire, a confrontation with everything you've refused to feel. So the question becomes, do you have the courage to suffer consciously? Not for the sake of wallowing, but for the sake of becoming, because buried beneath every heartbreak, every failure, every restless night, is the seed of something ferocious, something untamed, something divine. And Nietzsche knew it. He saw what we try to ignore. pain is not the enemy. It's the crucible. The only question is whether you will run from it or walk in, eyes open. Let's go deeper. Modern life has given us comfort, convenience, and the illusion of control. But beneath the surface, something is deeply broken. People are more medicated, distracted, and emotionally numb than ever before. Despite access to nearly unlimited information and tools for self-improvement, anxiety and depression are skyrocketing. Why? Because most of us are taught to escape pain, not understand it. We're conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs, through entertainment, consumption, productivity, or shallow positivity. Nietzsche saw this coming. He believed modern society was creating spiritually weakened individuals, people who were obedient, comfortable, but fundamentally disconnected from their true nature. Not because they were evil or lazy, but because they had outsourced their strength. They had traded their inner fire for social approval and fleeting pleasures. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. This quote is often repeated, but rarely understood in its full context. What Nietzsche meant is that meaning is born not in the absence of suffering, but through it. When life punches you in the gut, when you're stripped of everything you thought made you whole, if you don't have a deeper why, you're left empty, floating, vulnerable to despair. But if you do have that why, a vision of who you can become, or a truth you're willing to suffer for, then pain becomes fuel, not poison. Yet society tells us the opposite. It says, avoid suffering. It means something's wrong. Stay positive. Don't dwell on the negative. Happiness is the goal. But Nietzsche's worldview challenges all of that. He believed that suffering is not the opposite of happiness. It's the doorway to depth, to meaning, to power. This idea is mirrored in the work of depth psychologists like Carl Jung, who famously said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Jung developed the idea of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we reject, suppress, or deny. Our fears, our anger, our shame, our untapped desires. These parts don't disappear. They go underground, where they control our behavior in subtle, destructive ways. Most people never confront their shadow. Why? Because it's painful. It requires looking at yourself without flinching, owning your darkness, and integrating it, not to become evil, but to become whole. Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, or overman, is essentially someone who has done this inner work. Someone who has looked at life in all its chaos and cruelty, and instead of shrinking from it, says yes. A resounding yes to life as it is, without illusions, without guarantees. But this kind of strength doesn't come from books or therapy alone. It comes from experience, from falling apart and choosing to rebuild with intention, from pain, not just endured, but transformed. This is where most self-help fails us. It treats discomfort as a bug in the system, something to patch up. Nietzsche and thinkers like Dostoevsky, Sartre, and Schopenhauer saw it as the engine of awakening. Let's break this down further through a modern lens, the psychology of avoidance. In today's world, our most common responses to pain are suppression. I'm fine, it's nothing. Distraction. Endless scrolling, Netflix, alcohol, dopamine hits. Externalization. Blaming others or circumstances for our inner unrest. Pathologizing. Labeling all discomfort as a disorder to medicate away. But here's the harsh truth. Avoiding pain doesn't save you. It splits you. The more you avoid the inner wound, the more fragmented you become. The less you know who you are. This leads to chronic anxiety, a signal you're living out of alignment. Addictive behavior, a coping mechanism for disconnection. Meaninglessness, the slow death of the soul. Nietzsche warned that a society focused only on comfort and morality would produce people incapable of true individuality. His critique of religion, for example, wasn't just theological. It was psychological. He believed that systems designed to eliminate suffering also eliminated the opportunity for growth. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Nietzsche. Pain as a gateway to power. So what is the alternative? It's not masochism. Nietzsche didn't glorify suffering for its own sake. He glorified what it could awaken in us, if we used it consciously. This echoes Gabor Mate's work on trauma and addiction. Mate argues that the root of addiction is not the substance, but the pain beneath it, often rooted in early disconnection, unmet emotional needs, or societal dysfunction. Healing begins not with avoiding the pain, but by going into it, listening to it, asking what it's trying to show you. Mate's approach is radically compassionate, but also brutally honest. Your suffering has something to say. Are you willing to hear it? Nietzsche would have nodded in agreement. To reclaim your life, Nietzsche believed, you must become the author of your suffering, not its victim, not its suppressor, its sculptor. What does not kill me makes me stronger. One of his most famous and most misunderstood quotes. It doesn't mean that all suffering automatically strengthens you. It means that conscious suffering, suffering with awareness and intention, has the power to refine you. The key is not to suffer passively, but to suffer on purpose. Final thought for this section. The hidden problem is this. We live in a world terrified of depth, terrified of silence, terrified of confronting the soul's hunger. But pain is not a malfunction. It is the spark that burns down who you were, so something greater can emerge. And Nietzsche's greatest insight. You must be willing to endure the fire of becoming, or spend your life hiding from who you truly are. We've explored Nietzsche's radical idea that pain, far from being an obstacle, is the key to becoming your most powerful self. But how do you actually do that? How do you take the raw material of suffering, disappointment, trauma, isolation, and shape it into something meaningful? This section breaks down the transformation process, a kind of inner alchemy, through a psychological and philosophical lens, offering practical tools grounded in timeless wisdom. Step 1. Face the abyss. Without flinching. Nietzsche wrote, "If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." This isn't just poetic, it's psychological truth. The abyss is your deepest fear, your despair, your inner chaos. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. The first step in transformation is radical honesty. Sit with the discomfort. Ask yourself questions you've been avoiding. What pain am I constantly numbing or escaping? What beliefs about myself or the world are keeping me small? What am I pretending not to know? This is not easy. It may come with grief, shame, or anger. But as Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Shadow work begins here. Step 2. Name the shadow. Jung's concept of the shadow refers to the parts of you you've disowned. Your anger, envy, lust, ambition, even your capacity for cruelty or power. The shadow isn't evil, it's repressed energy. And that energy, when unacknowledged, comes out sideways. Through passive aggression, addiction, insecurity, or destructive habits. To reclaim it, keep a shadow journal. When something triggers you, envy, rage, disgust, write it down. Ask, what part of myself does this reflect? Reflect on your dark impulses. What desires or emotions have you labeled as wrong or shameful? Understand? Owning the shadow isn't about acting on it. It's about integrating it. Only then do you control it, not the other way around. Nietzsche believed the Overman wasn't someone perfect, but someone whole, someone who has looked into their own darkness and come back wiser. Step 3. Find your why, your inner North Star. Pain without meaning breaks you. Pain with meaning transforms you. Nietzsche's core message is that life requires a why. Without it, you'll be crushed by the how. Ask yourself, what is worth suffering for? Who do I want to become? Not to impress others, but to fulfill something deep within me. What legacy do I want to leave? This is your inner compass. Not a goal, but a direction. A reason to get up when it hurts. A reason to endure the fire, because you know what you're forging in the flames. And that's the key difference between self-pity and self-transformation. Intention. Step 4. Become the sculptor of your own soul. Nietzsche saw the self not as a fixed identity, but as something to be created, like a work of art. Become who you are. It sounds like a paradox, but it's a challenge. Stop living by default. Stop being a copy of what society expects. Instead, begin sculpting yourself. This requires discipline, not just insight. Set boundaries. Cut out what numbs or weakens you. Take ownership of your choices. No one is coming to save you. Begin a will-to-power practice. Not domination over others, but mastery over self. Create rituals that remind you of your strength. Start your day with intentional reflection. Practice discomfort voluntarily. Cold showers, silence, solitude. Learn to sit in stillness without reaching for a distraction. You're not just surviving your pain, you're building from it. Step 5. Let go of the old identity. True transformation requires death. Not physical, but symbolic, the death of the old self. You must be willing to release the stories that keep you small. I'm not good enough, I'm just broken. It's always been this way. The people who feed your illusions. The comfort that numbs your hunger. This is the most terrifying step, but also the most liberating. In Nietzsche's words, the snake that cannot shed its skin must perish. You will grieve the old you. That's natural. But on the other side of that grief is space. Space to become something greater. Step 6. Use your pain as a bridge to others. Once you've walked through fire, you have something rare: perspective, compassion, depth. This doesn't mean becoming a guru or fixing others. It means living in a way that radiates authenticity. People feel it, and it gives them permission to do the same. Gabor Mate speaks often about healing in connection. Once you've confronted your pain, you begin to see it in others, not with judgment, but understanding. You stop running from it, and instead become a quiet light for others still lost in the dark. Step 7. Say yes to life. The final stage of Nietzsche's transformation process is what he called amor fati, love of fate. Not just acceptance, but love. Loving the path that shaped you, even its cruelty. Loving the mistakes, the pain, the moments you thought you'd never rise again. Because without them, you would not be who you are becoming. I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things. Then I shall be one of those who make things beautiful. Nietzsche, on amor fati. This is not romantic idealism. It's defiant, resilient strength. Final thought. Pain is not your enemy. It is your mirror, your teacher, your forge. Nietzsche believed that those who suffer deeply are not cursed. They're called to rise, to awaken, to create themselves not in spite of their wounds, but because of them. The question is, will you answer that call? Nietzsche died in 1900, but his words echo louder today than ever. We live in a time that celebrates comfort, convenience, and safety. Yet anxiety, depression, and feelings of meaninglessness are at an all-time high. What would Nietzsche say about the modern world? He'd likely say this: we've built a society obsessed with avoiding pain, and in doing so we've become spiritually weaker. Let's explore why. 1. The culture of numbing. Everywhere you turn, there's a way to distract yourself. Feeling sad? Scroll your feed. Feeling anxious? Take a pill. Feeling bored? Stream a show. Play a game. Order food. Keep moving. Technology has given us endless tools to escape discomfort. But the cost is profound. We're not solving our inner pain, we're sedating it. Nietzsche would call this the triumph of the last man, his term for the modern human who chooses comfort over growth, pleasure over purpose, ease over excellence. The last man doesn't suffer because he never risks, never climbs, never transforms. And here's the paradox: the more we try to avoid pain, the more empty we feel. 2. The rise of victimhood. Identity today, there's social currency in being a victim. Trauma becomes identity. Oppression becomes a brand. Now, this doesn't mean trauma isn't real. It absolutely is. But Nietzsche would warn us. Don't worship your wounds. When pain becomes your badge, you stop trying to grow from it. You trap yourself in a loop of grievance and helplessness. Nietzsche believed suffering can be the beginning of power, but only if you refuse to be defined by it. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Nietzsche. Instead of asking, "Who hurt me?" he'd ask, "What am I going to do with that pain?" 3. The self-help illusion. There's a booming industry promising you happiness in 10 easy steps. Manifest it. Meditate it away. Journal your way to joy. Much of this modern self-help culture sells comfort dressed up as growth. It focuses on positive thinking, feeling good, and avoiding negative energy. Nietzsche would call it spiritual fast food. He believed growth is not clean or easy. It's violent. It breaks you first. You suffer, you fall apart, and then, if you're strong enough, you rise transformed. The modern obsession with instant relief robs people of that depth, of that real transformation. 4. Social media and the illusion of strength. On social media, people curate images of perfection, confidence, success, beauty, healing. But Nietzsche would see through this illusion. Real strength isn't loud. It isn't pretty. It's forged in silence, in private battles, in lonely nights. The strong people you see online, many are hiding behind filters and hashtags, never confronting the pain they carry. Nietzsche would ask, "Who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when everything falls apart? Can you stand alone, misunderstood, and still say yes to your life? That's real strength." 5. Medicalizing the human experience. There's no doubt that clinical depression, PTSD, and anxiety disorders are real and deserve treatment. But Nietzsche would caution us against turning every emotional struggle into a diagnosis. Pain is part of the human condition. Grief, heartbreak, existential despair. They're not always illnesses. Sometimes they're signals, warnings, initiations. He might argue that by trying to erase every trace of suffering, we rob people of the chance to mature, to evolve, to ask deeper questions. Why am I here? What matters? What am I avoiding? We treat pain like a bug in the system. Nietzsche believed it's the engine of the system. 6. The fear of isolation. Nietzsche wrote that the journey to transformation is a lonely one. He who climbs upon the highest mountains laughs at all tragedies, real or imaginary. Most people fear this solitude, so they conform. They cling to groupthink, to identity politics, to tribalism, because it feels safe. But Nietzsche warned that true growth comes when you dare to walk alone, when you think for yourself, feel for yourself, suffer for yourself. Modern society, with its obsession for likes, validation, and belonging, makes that kind of solitude almost unbearable. But without it, you never discover your own truth. You never meet the you on the other side of pain. 7. Turning pain into power is still possible. Despite all this, Nietzsche's challenge still stands, and it's more relevant than ever. If you dare to, stop numbing. Face your shadow. Choose meaning over victimhood. Endure solitude. Let go of comfort. Then you can become something rare, not perfect, but powerful. You can become someone who no longer fears life, because you've lived its darkest corners and survived. You've stopped chasing happiness and started chasing truth. And in that truth, you find something deeper than pleasure. You find freedom. Final reflection. In a world that runs from pain, you have two choices. Join the crowd, chase comfort, medicate your suffering, stay safe, or walk the harder path, face the fire, become something stronger. Nietzsche's message isn't easy, but it's real. It's raw, and for those brave enough to answer it, it offers a kind of fulfillment no shortcut can deliver. Pain is the path, power is the reward. So ask yourself, what are you willing to suffer for? So now you know what Nietzsche believed. Pain is not the enemy, it's the crucible. The pressure that breaks you is the same pressure that builds you. But belief alone doesn't change lives. Action does. The final question is, what will you do with your pain? Let's take this from theory to practice. Here's how you can begin walking Nietzsche's path of transformation today. 1. Stop avoiding pain. Start listening to it. Pain isn't random. It's a message, a mirror, a map. Instead of suppressing it, distracting yourself from it, or trying to eliminate it at all costs, face it. Ask yourself, what is this pain trying to tell me? What part of myself have I abandoned, ignored, or silenced? Where am I still afraid to look? Start journaling. Sit in stillness. Let the discomfort speak. This is the beginning of self-honesty, and no transformation happens without it. 2. Choose a meaning that justifies the struggle. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Most people suffer for no clear reason. They're tossed around by life, resenting everything that hurts. But pain without purpose is unbearable, so give your suffering a reason. What do you want to become? Who do you want to help? What future version of yourself makes this struggle worth it? Anchor your pain to a purpose, and suddenly, it's no longer just suffering. It's initiation. 3. Kill the comfort crutch. Comfort is addictive, and like all addictions, it destroys from the inside out. If you truly want to grow, you must practice voluntary discomfort. That means doing things that scare you, breaking old patterns, saying no when it would be easier to say yes, saying yes when your fear screams no. Take cold showers, train your body, speak the truth even when your voice shakes. Wake up early, do the work no one sees. Start small, but start now. Each discomfort you embrace is a brick laid on the road to power. 4. Integrate your shadow. Carl Jung, a student of Nietzsche's ideas, expanded on the concept of the shadow, the dark, hidden side of your personality. And Nietzsche would agree. You are not whole until you face the parts of yourself you've tried to bury. Your envy, your rage, your lust, your cowardice, your need to dominate. Don't pretend they're not there. Don't shame them. Instead, understand them. Because once integrated, your shadow becomes your strength. You stop projecting. You stop sabotaging. You become whole. And no one can use your darkness against you anymore. 5. Stand alone, even. If it hurts Nietzsche, you believe that true growth happens in isolation. Not forever, but long enough for you to stop needing others' approval. Sow detachment. Not with hate, but with courage. Stop shaping your identity around groupthink. Stop shrinking to fit in. Stop diluting your truth to avoid discomfort. The higher your climb, the lonelier it gets. But it's in that solitude that you meet the real you, not the version others expect. And in that discovery, you find peace. 6. Redefine your relationship with failure. You will fall. You will fail. You will be rejected, ridiculed, misunderstood. Good. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the Overman, uses failure. He doesn't see it as defeat. He sees it as fuel. So next time you fall, ask, what did this reveal about me? What part of me needs to die so something stronger can be born? The goal isn't perfection. The goal is becoming, again and again. 7. Create yourself. Daily. Nietzsche didn't believe you find yourself. He believed you must create yourself. Piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. Your life is your greatest artwork. Your pain is your greatest raw material. And your responsibility is your greatest freedom. So ask yourself every day, what am I building today? Am I running from pain or using it? Am I chasing comfort or becoming stronger? Each day is a chance to choose power over weakness, meaning over numbness, evolution over stagnation. Final words. The modern world will try to keep you soft, safe, and distracted. But that's not what you're here for. You're here to become, to suffer meaningfully, to rise from it, to forge yourself in fire and walk away, not bitter, but awakened. Pain will visit you either way. The only question is, will it break you or build you? Nietzsche believed the answer lies in your will. So choose, and choose boldly. Now it's your turn. Start with one small act of courage today. One honest question, one painful truth faced, and then another, and another. Transformation isn't an idea, it's a decision. And it starts right now.